You are listening to Claret and Blue, an Aston Villa podcast brought to you by Birmingham Live.
Hello and welcome to a live episode of the Claret and Blue podcast, hosted on Aston Villa News Facebook Live. I see that James didn't get the green jumper / polo shirt memo for this one, and he's still wearing that Kappa jumper that he's not taken off yet. James,
I'm wearing it straight through, mate. Yeah, it's smelly now.
Obviously, we're live on Facebook, so we want to answer your questions today because, newsflash, Villa are yet to make another signing since Matty Cash. We've got no game this weekend, so we're not like the other clubs where we've got press conference news to talk about and injuries and all the rest of it. We're a week behind schedule. Not really a season preview, not a transfer announcement. So what do we want to talk about? We can set the agenda, gents. What do you want to go for?
I think Ash knows best, right? And I feel like we've got to go for the big Freddie Gilbert talking point, right, mate?
Gilbert, yeah, it's coming from France, isn't it? L'Equipe, how'd you say? L'Equipe.
Yeah, you go for it.
€5 million, apparently Villa want for Gilbert, which is probably the similar fee they paid for him. I can't see him leaving at all, though. That's the second or third time now reports have come from France regarding Gilbert potentially leaving. They've just jumped on the Matty Cash arrival, to be fair. Two similar players, same position, play the same style as well. Gilbert did struggle to settle in to begin with. His English was very limited, and he's quite like a different character to the rest. I mean, he struggled to really bed into the squad. So I can see where the links have come from, given the Cash arrival. But I fully expect Gilbert to stay. Knowing Almo's contract is coming up to an end as well, and his Villa career will end as well this year, the end of this summer as well. So Gilbert will stay, I think, unless he wants to move. I think the ball being Gilbert's court, but knowing Gilbert and the way he is, he'll want to fight for that shirt. And I fully expect him to have that shirt when Villa play next week at Burton, perhaps. It'll be his shirt to lose. Cash needs to win that off him, to be fair. So I can't see Gilbert leaving for me. I don't know about you guys think of that.
Yeah, it was odd. But I feel like, when the signing of Matty Cash, it all makes sense, right? Because we didn't see Gilbert much during lockdown, and then he come in with that explosive tackle during Arsenal. Everyone's hyping up again. I really like him. I rate him, but I feel like this Matty Cash thing, it does it almost actually it signals something maybe to the French press that they've leapt on, but also and I know it's probably not just him. There's a few French players we've had, and it always seems to come back to this homesickness thing, right, whatever's going on. Verity was put up in a hotel for ages and seemed a bit off, whether there's anything in that. But I'm like Ash. I feel like he should stay and fight because he's that character. He's got the right personality. So, hope for the best with that one, because you don't like to say there's no smoke without a fire, right? But sometimes there is. So I'm hoping there's nothing going on with this, Stan.
It's one of those, isn't it? I would rather have Cash and Gilbert. It's two right backs that could start in the Premier League going out against each other to compete and improve themselves, rather than Cash or Gilbert having Elmo behind them, not really having any threat, knowing that Elmo's not going to be here long term. I'd rather have two potentially starting right backs going at it rather than a starter and someone who's never going to play. So yeah, I'd keep Gilbert. Loads of questions coming in, by the way, so we don't need to set an agenda ourselves much longer. We might as well just jump straight in. Before we do that, though, Phil McNulty of the BBC has tweeted at 1:30, Aston Villa close to deal for Brentford striker Ollie Watkins. Fee is an initial 28 million, which could rise to 33 million with add-ons.
We've heard that before, haven't we?
Yeah.
We've heard this one's close.
Yeah. Villa have prepared a bid all this time. What do we think about that Ollie Watkins deal? Because we all want a striker. We all know we need a striker. Brentford can set the price whatever they want. Is it a case of Villa just pay the money now and just get this deal done? If that's the one they want, they go for it?
Yeah, man, I'm really excited about Ollie Watkins. I saw a few tweets probably bigging him up a little bit too much, saying he'll be the best striker we've had in ages. And I think you got to remember we did have Tammy Abraham. They did put up similar numbers in the Championship. To be fair, I like Watkins, but I do think we do need to get that other striker in, whether it's like Josh King or whomever. But Watkins on the wing up front, you got to pay the price, and it's 28 million is a lot of money to me. But again, we said in the last episode, we don't really care about the fees, because it's not coming out of our pocket and beats it within budget, isn't it? 28 million in 2020 is probably akin to a 15, 13 million 5-10 years ago. So I'm all for it, mate.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's come to that, hasn't it? Brentford have got the pulling power with this one. They've demanded top dollar for him, and they're going to get top dollar. Similar to Villa have acted with Grealish, isn't it? Their star player. They set the parameter. The Man U bolted it. and gone with Van Beek instead. It's similar kind of situation. I think Villa are going to pay it, aren't they? Who's coming out, rising to 33, is it, Dan?
Yeah, I think that'll be internationals, wouldn't it? I would have thought.
International caps, be gold incentive-wise. So 28 million initial. Strikers cost money.
I guess
double figures, you're laughing, aren't you?
There's a couple of comments saying that it's too much. I guess the argument against that would be, obviously, we know Tammy Abraham now has gone on to do it for Chelsea in the Premier League. For if it was the start of last season, and I think I'm getting my years right, it's been a long, long time, when Tammy had only performed with us in the Championship and scored 26 goals, if Chelsea had come out then and said 28 million rising to 33, would we have thought that was too much for Tammy Abraham? Would we have been going, oh, he's only done it in the Championship, is he worth it? We'd have been going, oh, great signing, he's performed, let's get him in. So just because Watkins hasn't done it in the Premier League yet doesn't mean that this is a bad signing. It just means, yeah, of course it's a risk and it's a lot of money, but if this is who the coach and team have identified as their number one target, Brentford can say, this is how much we want. We just have to go and spend it, don't we?
You got your target. You got to go for a minute. It's that simple. Otherwise, I see a few comments coming in missing out on Wilson. Who knows what happened with that, right? But if you've got a striker in mind, we said it with Wilson, didn't we, Dan? Last time we said if that's the guy, you pay the money because he's the one. He's the fit you've identified. I know Tammy would have been worth it for one because you saw him do it at Bristol City, then you saw him do it for Swansea. So no brainer. Ollie Watkins, obviously, there's always going to be like that risk factor where people think, oh, he's a Championship player. Man, the guy's good enough, like in my eyes. So I'll pay it.
Yeah, someone said that Tammy had Premier experience, but he'd only had a season with Swansea who went down potentially, or they had a rubbish season at least. Like he was only good enough to get a move to a Championship side back then, so it's not like it was like, oh yeah, this is a no-brainer of a deal for Tammy Abraham. So the price is the price, isn't it? We said last episode, you judge this on next season. If Ollie Watkins scores 20 Premier League goals, we'll all be on, yeah, of course he's worth that much.
He's coming in banging form as well, isn't he? 26 goals last year, Championship best player. We did it with McCormack, didn't we, in the Championship as well?
Oh, we've been done before.
We have before. I mean, 24-year-old, Smith knows him well. And I think statement of intent by Villa going all out for their top target instead of missing out. So,
what do we think of the Wilson stuff? Do we think we've missed out there?
I think
the Josh King stuff has come out since, and there's a little bit on Villa Twitter thinking that, well, King is the one I'd prefer out of the two anyway, and he seems to be cheaper. So have we really missed out on Wilson anyway? Steve
Bruce has got a bit of a smooze about him as well, hasn't he? He schmoozed John McGinn, John Terry. So probably whispered sweet nothings in his ear, but I don't know. I think possibly King's the better deal considering how versatile he is. He can play as a 10 player, as a wing player. Comes with a better pedigree. Wilson coming off the back of a disappointing season, very injury prone and out of form really. So Josh King's the cheaper alternative there. Contract's running down. I mean, King and Watkins, that's pretty decent, isn't it, really, to get them pairing?
I'll go for Josh King any day. I feel like, there was interest with United, wasn't there, before they brought in Igalo. So I feel like he's got the quality. And if you go for Callum Wilson and you miss, or if you don't go for Callum Wilson at all and you focus on Josh King, I rate him. He's got those leadership attributes, goal scorer. Everything Villa wanted in the Wilson links and the Origi links, it exists in Josh King. So for me, it's an absolute no-brainer. I know we say that a lot, but for me, it's a no-brainer, mate. Like, I'll go for him. I'll go for Watkins and King. Seems like the attitude that Villa have been looking for, the players, the kind of players they want. And you get the guy in, and I think you succeed.
Let's go to some of these comments then. James Williams asks, is there any news on Odsonne Edouard? Even without Villa, has he been linked to anyone else in the last week or so? This is one that's gone very quiet.
No, the link's still there. Obviously, National Report's still links. His name's still sticking. I think it's just price on that one. 40, 50 million, is it? I think
it's 40, yeah.
They're spending the bulk on Watkins, aren't they? I can't see him spending near enough. I think it's going to be 80 million on the pair of them. I don't know. I think it's price with Edouard. I don't know if Celtic might sell. I don't know. Yeah,
I think he would be my number one guy if we didn't have to reinforce any other positions, so we could get Watkins, Edouard, call it a day with cash in the background. But I think you got your goalkeeper. You probably want the midfielder and maybe another centre back or whomever. Whatever opportunities emerge, Villa can't be open to them if they go for Edouard, who I really like. So I feel like probably got to maybe call it quits on that and see what happens as you approach deadline day, which is still less than a month away.
Yeah.
I've been here ages.
Yeah, things change, don't they? If there's suddenly a bit of panic somewhere along the line, and someone spots a deal that if Celtic spot a deal they can finance better, they can get 40 million in Fred Award towards the end and make a move elsewhere. Then things do change, don't they? Andy Gallagher says, "Are we struggling to attract players?" This is an interesting point, isn't it? Because Villa finished 17th by the skin of their teeth. Is that an attractive proposition? Sorry, there's a bit of fluff in there. It doesn't smell. Are we an attractive proposition for clubs?
If it was me, yeah, I'd sign the contract. You could give me a tenner a week, man. I'd be playing. But I know what people say when Leeds are there and they're similar size, right? They've got a massive, passionate fan base. They've got Marcelo Bielsa in charge. People always say, "Oh, how could you speak to Bielsa and then Dean Smith and choose Dean Smith?" But I feel like players will have that individual fits. There'll be certain players attracted to Bielsa, and they'll be emboldened after a conversation with him because it'd be easy because he's one of the legendary coach. Then there's Dean Smith's personality will rub off on people as well. I feel like it's hard to see where Villa are positioned in the world because to us, right, they're an amazing club who've got a great history. To others, people might be looking at I don't want to say it out loud, but people might be looking to clubs where we finished around last season, like even your Bournemouths and your West Ham's, just saying that I can get a higher level, I can go to a higher level, and it just depends on where that context fits and if Villa approach them, can they pitch it right? I feel like they've got a harder job now after relegation and bouncing back up than probably existing in the Premier League beforehand. Again, for me, it's easy to say massive club, massive stadium. Villa got to make that pitch. I feel like they can do, but it's harder in 2020 after all that's happened than it would have been before, I think, Ash. Yeah,
you look at that James Rodriguez deal to Everton. Not in a million years would Villa be in for that player, would they? He's gone for 16 to 18 million, which is nothing really. But look at the whole wage package there. Carlo Ancelotti flexing his muscle as well.
Yeah,
it's like a world apart of what Villa would do, isn't it? With their strategy. So they've gone for Watkins, young British player, proven last year in the Championship. I don't think they're going to get these world beaters. Possibly, Spurs are hoping for. They've got to be coy and cute in the window. Obviously, Watkins top target. Look like they're going to get him now. So, I was interested to see what Johan Lange would bring in, the sporting director. Would there be a surprise later in the window? So European window closes in less than a month now. I was hoping for a couple of surprise packages, maybe. Look what Sousa did last year, but a few out the blue there, but none of the names Villa were familiar with there. So I don't know. I think there could be room to get a couple of oddballs in. You don't know from the European leagues. I don't know, but
it's just frustrating, isn't it? More than anything, I think when we first did the podcast. When the window first opened, you and me did a few in a row, James, where we were called negative multiple times for suggesting that transfers might not go through and we might not be able to pull out 50 million for Ben Rama and Watkins, and there was a lot of links with Tammy, but we were thinking, there's surely no chance of that happening. And a month down the line or whatever it is, there's no signings coming through the door apart from a right back from Nottingham Forest. So there's reasons to be frustrated, which is absolutely fair, and I understand why people are frustrated. But like you just said, there's still a month to go. There's still things will happen late. A lot of clubs only now are starting to make a few transfers. I think Sheffield United signed 3 yesterday. Palace signed a couple. Who else am I thinking of? Newcastle, obviously, Wilson and Fraser both came in yesterday. So it's not like we're miles and miles behind. I understand why people are frustrated, but it's still on Tuesday, isn't it? We don't play this week for a start.
Yeah.
As much as we want to get people in as soon as possible. This time next week, if we've got 2 or 3 extra signings, everyone will go, what were we worried about? That was hard to say.
I think it's key to kind of, I've been watching this like the Tottenham Hotspur thing, right?
That's very good.
Yeah, it is wicked. Everyone should, I'm not going to advertise who it's on because they need to give us some money before we do that, right? You can't just throw it out. It could give us like £1 million if we want to hit them. But seriously, you see Tottenham Hotspur and the package they can present and how hard it is for them to kind of get those deals across the line. I know it's January and it's different, but transfers take ages and ages to do, and you have to rely on like a merry-go-round of activity. And you have to rely on agents to kind of butter people up and get the deals done because they're hard. It relies on everyone. When someone mentions transfers in the industry, all they say is how difficult it is to do a single transfer just to get it done. It's physically difficult. It's physically difficult. I assume that it would be the case for Aston Villa, and I assume it would be the case for every other team. Newcastle got like 2 or 3 deals done. Jeff Hendrick, Ryan Fraser, and Callum Wilson. 2 of them have come in the last 24 hours. Like Villa were one up on them with Matty Cash. So if you're comparing other clubs, Villa have done reasonably okay in terms of the deals coming in. But look, everyone says stuff happens at the end because that's the nature of it. You're not going to get your deals done before the end. Everyone wants to say we're coming to deadline day and have nothing to worry about. That's how many years have we got of evidence that that's an absolute lie? Like every year, every deadline date goes off. And I think a good example to bring up is Tom Carroll, because he joined last minute right on loan when we went up, and he played 16 minutes, but he joined last minute on loan, and everyone said they've done that in like 5 minutes. But he had, in his first interview, he says this has been on and off for weeks, like since the start of the window. So look, these things take time, and Brentford, any EFL club we deal with, has an extra week or so, like just to deal with us. So there's all these dynamics. It's crazy.
Yeah, let's have a look at some of these comments then. It's just a lot of people just saying sign some players. We need a striker. We need.
I think me and Ash and yourself would love to be in charge of these deals, because we would ruin the club. It'll be done. Like
things change so much.
Yeah, if you wanted me to get James Rodriguez in, I would sell the stadium. Would be like sold to some geese. I'd do it. Not gonna happen.
We did obviously we do other clubs as well. I had to produce a Facebook Live for Wolves last week, and before they'd signed is it Fabio Silva and whatever the other guy is for record fees, and we had Alex and Ben talking for half an hour, very depressed, very quiet, we need loads of players, what's going on, what's the situation, the season's about to start, we're not signing anybody. A week later they've broken the transfer record, and everyone's looking at them going, oh, there's a couple of decent deals Wolves have done. This time next week we could have Watkins holding up a Villa shirt and Edouard could be coming out of the blue. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying these things are happening, but things change so quickly. So yes, as of Tuesday at 10-2, we've not signed anyone apart from Matty Cash, and it's frustrating. But things change so quick, and I think we're probably quite fortunate we don't play this weekend, and we've got a little bit of a grace period for a few days. People are asking about the England squad. Do we think Jack Grealish will play tonight? Probably not. We talked about it a little bit, but yeah, don't think he will, even with the Foden and Greenwood thing.
Don't hold your breath. No, I don't think so. I think Calvin Phillips probably starting. So I think it's a bit more reserved. I think I didn't watch the Iceland game. I was in Blackpool, so I didn't miss him much.
It's so boring.
Down screen for him, didn't it?
So boring.
Yeah, the Arneson missed as well, our old mate. Gutted for him, to be fair. After the state of the penalty that we were given, handball, like, defending your face. I hate them ones. So I thought, go on, Iceland, go on, be honest, and give it a make him see that Jack should be on this pitch. He misses, man. He can't even do it for us then. But Ash, mate, you didn't miss nothing.
No, you didn't miss anything. Craig says, can't we use players like Hogan or Lansbury in these purchases to lower the outlay? Is that a possibility, James? You offloading that?
Ash is shaking his head. That says it all for me, man. Like, would you, if you were... I ain't slagging these players off. I'm not doing them down because Hogan done it for Hogan did it for Blues. Lansbury's clearly, when he was playing every game for Nottingham Forest, he was clearly decent. If you offered me them players for Ollie Watkins, Ben Rahm, Josh King, I'd say no, because what value do they like? If it was Blues, it'll be different because I might want Hogan. Who you got to judge the situation. Going back to All or Nothing, who wanted Danny Rose? He's decent. It was nobody. It was Newcastle and Bournemouth. They didn't have the scale of moves. So, is Hogan worth more pitching out on his own as a transfer to a club that very clearly might be interested, or is he better taking 2-3 million off a deal that's going to be paid in installments anyway? If you know what I mean, it's not for me. Don't work like that, does it?
No, it's football manager terms, isn't it? To be chucking in players that you don't want, and you can put a little drop down bar, and you can be like, add existing player, or whatever it says. You just chuck Lansbury there, get rid of him, but it doesn't work like that in real life. Michael Gillespie says he wants Ryan Brewster as well. This was a link that came about in the last couple of days. I think Liverpool wanted 20 million maybe and a buyback clause.
Loads queuing up.
A few people saying that that's too much. Other people saying it's a decent deal. What do we think about the Brewster rumour? Is there any chance of it even?
Well, Villa looked at him in January, to be fair. They wanted a bit more experience there, but they signed Baston and Samata, which is a scratch your head at that. But I think Villa were interested back in January. Didn't sign him. Went to Swansea, scored 11 in 22, banged them in. Looks frightening. Looks a frightening prospect. But he wants to start at Liverpool, so I think the ball's in Liverpool's court there. Whether they want to cash in and get a number 9 to rival Firmino, I don't know. But massive potential in Brewster. I think 20 million's a decent deal, to be fair. I think it could be worth treble that in a couple of years. So if Villa can do that, that's one that would excite me. About 8 clubs in for him in the Premier League, so that tells its own story. But Brewster, yeah, I'm well behind that one if they can get that one done. But to all in Liverpool's court, really, I don't think Brewster fancies it, to be fair. He'll have to get some persuading there, but yeah, I'd like to see that deal come through if possible.
Again, it fits the mould for me. Is that guy who's just going to play up front every single game. For me, Brewster comes in as a starter. There's absolutely no doubt about that in my mind until Wesley's back, at least. Depending on this Watkins thing, of course. But yeah, I'll take Green Brewster any day. I feel like the problem is it's that situation where it's kind of an unknown quantity in the Premier League. He's clearly got the ability to cut it. So Liverpool are in that arena where they can probably feel like they can charge what they want. So you might be thinking of getting him for 20 million, like the Watkins thing, where you're thinking you might get 18 million through the door, and then it's up to 33 before you know it. So who knows? It's going to be one of those things that comes down so late and depends on moves elsewhere to kind of get your foot in the door. But I feel like he's a good fit for Villa. I really do.
What do you think about this? Mindset or mentality is definitely the wrong word. People kind of wondering or curious about why we're only looking at Championship players. Marco says, what is it about Bournemouth players? They're relegated, low scorers. Come on, Villa, surely we deserve better. Is that a viable kind of point to look at Championship players and just think, just avoid them at all costs because they're at a lower level to Villa, so what's the point?
Just availability, isn't it? They're readily available. Just gone down, okay, but clearly talented players. They've scored plenty of goals in the Premier League. Like James said, Man U were well keen on bringing Josh King into Old Trafford as recently as January. Callum Wilson's done it before. He scored 14 in something like 33 games a year before last. He's got his England call-up. So both very good players. It's a shame Villa haven't tapped into Norwich as well. Buendia, good player as well.
Yeah, good players in the Championship. If Villa had gone down, people would have been looking at Grealish, McGee, and Mings, people like that. And you would be looking at them going, oh, they're bad players because they're in the Championship. It's just, there is some good quality players out there. Yes, it'd be nice to be signing the great youth prospects from Liverpool and Man City and Man United, but again, it's attracting those players, isn't it? That's the difficult thing. If Ollie Watkins in the Championship is costing you upwards of 33 million, someone's asking or making the point that Origi is 25 to 30 million, a Belgian international with Premier League experience. If Liverpool want 20 million for Brewster, how much are they going to ask for Origi?
Yeah, I think wages would be an issue for Origi as well, to be fair. So, interesting comments from Perzo that resurfaced. We ran a story on today about the wage structure.
Yeah,
Villa have only been in the Premier League 1 year compared to your Burnleys have been in there 5 years now, so they can't really offer much in wage package for players as well. I don't think Villa are offering £100,000 a week to players like Bournemouth have been. So that's potentially been a stumbling block in this window. I think so. Yeah, I think that.
I think like there was a problem as well with financial fair play where people assume that it doesn't exist. It technically doesn't, but it's been folded into next year, so it does. So if your average smacks out as you've spent way over budget and you've sank the club just for this season compared to next season, you've got that average is going to stick out. So what do you think is going to happen when the accounts come in? They're going to just ignore this year because it's smacked up. But like, you've got to consider so much of this. And I think, thank God for Villa, there was an old FFP ruling, which is like your wages could only increase by a certain percentage every year. I think Villa are keen to kind of stick to that, even though it doesn't exist anymore, because it's healthy for the club, right? And I mean, like, you could only increase your wages. I think for Villa's instance, like, you could only add one Jack Grealish in terms of wages. So they were kind of, you'd have been hamstrung if that rule still exists. And I feel like Villa, just for sustainability reasons, are very keen to stick to a very similar approach. But like, they can't be chucking money left, right, and centre because, you know, there's teams that have existed in this league, but all the while Villa are down in the Championship, have existed in this league and be able to build and stretch those budgets a little bit further. So I feel like you're looking at a project with Villa, and one that, you know, it does have potential. If we keep Jack Grealish, he's got all the potential in the world, but it's just about keeping these key players, making yourself an attractive proposition and building sensibly instead of doing very silly things like some other clubs might be doing.
If you look at that as well, James, about if a player comes in for, he wants 120 grand a week, then Grealish is on way less than that, and then McGinn's thinking, just creates that you know what I mean, that atmosphere within the camp as well. So Villa being sensible, I quite like that. They've spent thousands on wages before on average players, so I think they're taking stock and much more shrewder this time around, which is good to see from them.
Yeah, we said when the Matty Cash deal was announced that this one ticks a lot of boxes. It makes a lot of sense. A player with potential resale value, not a massive fee, won't be on massive wages, come up from the Championship and hopefully does well. And you look on the other side, yesterday Newcastle, Wilson and Fraser, yes, players that Villa have been linked with, but Wilson on a 5-year deal, a 4-year deal, Ryan Fraser on a 5-year deal.
Yeah, Fraser's wages be huge as well.
Is that something that, there's people saying, we need to sign players, why are we taking so long to get deals done? Ryan Fraser on a 5-year deal, would we have been happy with that? Chucking loads of money on that? Or is it better to be a bit more calculated? Yes, take your time and hopefully make, and also that doesn't mean that, taking more time will be the best decision. And it will all work out and it will be perfect. We could spend 33 million on Watkins and it'd be a disaster, obviously. But it feels like Villa are trying to do things a little bit better this time and being a bit more considered and careful rather than just going out there, getting a bit panicky and chucking things around. I hope they stick with that. There's still a month to go. Don't kind of throw all that away now and panic.
I go back to Everton and James Rodriguez because I think there's a lot of people just saying he weren't this good player or anything, but he's a world-class player. Everton have got him. They've had to exist in the Premier League for a certain amount of years since FFP was brought in to kind of stretch this budget and bring in that TV money and bring in the revenue needed to kind of think about these deals down the line. I think you look at how long Everton have been in and maybe bounced around up and down the table, but they've been in the Premier League getting this money, whereas Villa haven't. They haven't been in the Premier League. They dropped out at the worst possible time, in my opinion. I think in a lot of people's opinions, it's a terrible time to drop out. But Villa cannot, if you were to think about the deal that Everton have had to organise to bring in Rodriguez to that club, there's the options, but it's smart finances, right? Villa aren't in a position to do that. Are Villa in a position to pay a player twice as much as they're probably paying Jack Grealish and without destroying the entire atmosphere of the club? Because as much as players do love playing for Aston Villa, if it would annoy anyone working anywhere to see that deal happen. And as much as people would love playing with a world-class player, I mean, imagine if Higuain got brought in 270 grand a week, for example, probably isn't performing at the levels worthy of that. Whereas you look at your Matty Cash, who's putting in everything on the line every week. The dynamics don't work. So I think we have to consider the dynamics of these moves, and Villa aren't probably going to be in a position to buy amazing players for a season or two. It's that simple.
Also, worst comes to worst, Villa are still, as much as we don't want to, we expect better this year, Villa will still be a team that will be fighting around the bottom end of the table, I think, or in the bottom six clubs, I would say. Your target is going to be 14th to 12th, something like that. It's not going to be plain sailing next season all of a sudden. If the worst happens and we go big this year, we start giving people 5-year deals, big wages, and we get relegated in 8 months' time, Villa are back in big trouble again. So they have to be careful because they're ahead of schedule, aren't they? So I think we just all have to be a little bit more patient and just wait and see what happens. I'm really
intrigued to say last summer's crop that come in last summer struggled to adapt. How are they going to start this season now? Because obviously they've been there for a whole season. I'm expecting a bit more from your Treasure guys now. They could kick on. I don't know. Even your semantics, you don't know, do you?
That's a really good point, because it's like people saying you can't make the same mistakes as last year, but it's impossible because now Villa have a squad. They can buy the same type of. You can buy your Wesleys and your Louises, and you can bed them in properly. I know they came well good, especially with Louise. Wesley struggled into that injury, right? But you can take those risks now because you do have a Premier League, barely a Premier League squad, but a Premier League squad nonetheless, right? Yeah,
like we said before, I think me and Matt maybe did an episode where we said that even if Villa don't sign many players, the ones they've already got should be better than they were last year, because we were better in the Project Restart era than we were before that, so we should be slightly better than we were pre that. But you've got to sign players. Villa will sign players. They're obviously looking at deals all the time. Just got to wait and see what happens. Like I said, I think it's lucky that we're probably a week behind schedule in terms of the fixtures. But just got to wait and see. People need patience, which is it's difficult in a transfer window.
Yeah, so Marvels Nakamba could morph into N'Golo Kante next year. Who knows?
Exactly, mate. Exactly.
Yeah, it's just about waiting and seeing. The squad got better over lockdown. There's been another break. It exists that they'll get better again. Who knows?
Yeah, well, I think we'll call it a day because it's difficult to just keep going around in circles when nothing happens. I know that's frustrating for people. We want to sit here and talk about new signings and obviously games when they come back around, which we will do. But since we did the Matty Cash episode, nothing's changed really, James. There's no more to add, is there? There's only so many times we can sit here and say, be patient.
Jacob Ramsey's banged into at Arsenal.
Good point. And Douglas Luiz scored as well, I think. And the kit looked lovely, by the way, as well, in those pictures I saw, that's nice.
Strong Arsenal team as well, so.
Yeah. But friendlies mean nothing. We all know that.
Undefeated in pre-season, mate. I guess it all hinges on kind of two things happening tonight as well. Two good things happening tonight. Where we could see Grealish play, like we said. Maybe we have to see if Southgate's feeling it. But under 23s as well. So you can watch that on Sunderland's website for a tenner if you fancy seeing Villa's under 23s.
I'm definitely bored of international football, but I'm not sure whether I'll stoop to paying £10 to Sunderland for an under 23 games. But
back the kids, mate. You got to learn from all our days we were filming outside. You got to back the kids, pal.
That's true. But yeah, we'll call it a day. Thanks to everyone who's joined us this lunchtime to chat about all things Villa. Lots of comments, lots of questions. So apologies I can't get around to everyone. Lots of Leeds and Birmingham fans in here as well, which is absolutely bizarre. Get a life, to be honest. What are you doing? Like, I could never imagine sitting here, opening up my phone and going on a Blues live stream and commenting up the Villa. Like, get a life, mate. Biggest team in Birmingham. We know who we are. James, thanks for joining us. Ash, thanks for joining us as well. We'll be back at some point in the next week or so. We'll be here to react to any live breaking news as well. Thanks very much. See you soon.
Thank you for listening to Claret and Blue, an Aston Villa podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, then please let us know. We love hearing your feedback. We'll be back soon with another episode. Until then, up the Villa.